Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today on Masechtas Bava Daf Lamed. We're going to begin on the top of Lamed Amud Aleph by the new Mishnah. Says the Mastis, says as follows. Hashevich mayim b'reshus harabim. Let's say a person pours some water into the public street. V'huzik behen acher. And someone walks by and slips. It's a slip and fall. So in that situation, then is chayav b'nizkai. You're going to be chayav the fact that he got injured. You shouldn't have allowed that spill. It should have been cleaned up. Hamatzniya as a coats. Ves as a chuchis. Let's say a person has some thorns or glass, and it's in a hidden manner. V'goyner as gidroi b'koitzim. Let's say he has a fence which is filled with thorns, which could cause damage. V'gadar shenafal reshus harabim, and you have a fence that just fell down. V'huzik behen acher chayav b'nizkan. So in all these different cases, if someone gets injured, you're held responsible, you're accountable. So, says the Gemara on this. Amarav, lo shanu. The only time we say this din is Ella is only in a situation shenitanfu kelev, that it ruined the person's clothing b'mayim. Avalhu atzmo pater karka oyam hizikasai. Interesting. Totally against the simple reading of the Mishnah. You would think that you're chayav for all damages. No, you're only chayav because now there's a stain on his clothes. So you have to pay for the laundering. But the person who slipped and got injured, it wasn't the liquid, it was the ground. Even though the truth is the liquid caused him to slip. Maybe this is the idea of grama b'nezakin is potter. Armali Rav Hunal Rav lo yehi ela kerivshay. We should say it should not be any different than his own mud. In other words, if you own it, then you should be chayiv for the damages. So mi savret deloy tamu maya. You want to tell me we're talking about where the water is not absorbed? But the tamu maya, we're talking about that the water basically absorbed into the ground, which means there's no mud. So it's a little bit of a wet surface, but it absorbed into the ground. It's not that you created a huge muddy surface, which makes it extremely slippery. Okay, something to think about. The tarti lemli. So why do we need these two? It says Rashi Lashmi Inan b'masnis and kin of kalim to teach us the din of dirtying your clothing. But Tanino El, we already said Nishbur Kadai b'reshus harabim. We already had another Mishnah that told us this, that if, let's say, your vessel broke in reshus harabim, and someone got slipped on it, it's because the liquid was not hefker, with a tin of kalim. We're talking about the dirtying of kalim. So why do we need to mention it? Seemingly the same thing. So chad be mosacham, chad be mosacham. Needs to tell you that even, let's say, in mosacham, as you're actually given permission to dump liquids into the ground, into the area, so you're allowed to do it. But that doesn't mean if someone gets injured, you're going to be potter. You're still going to be chayav. The sani kol elu shamru poiskin biboisen. We had this before. The garfin maroisehen b'mosachama. So all these cases, a person basically cleared out his dirty water from his gutters, from the caves, in the summer months. Ein lehem reshus. During those times, you're not allowed to. It's illegal. During the time when it's rainy, wintry, not nice weather anyway, yesh lehem reshus. Even though you do have permission, you would still be chayav to pay. Okay, so that's the chiddush. That even though you're given permission, doesn't mean that you're off the hook. That if someone is damaged, you're still going to be chayav. But again, we're only talking about not the person, because we say the ground damaged the person, but rather you're talking about when you chayav for paying for the damage of the clothing. Hamatznias a kites v'chul. So you put thorns in there. Some Rav Yochanan lo shanu, which again where we said that you're going to be chayiv, ela mafriach, only if it's sticking out into the Rosh Hashanah. So therefore, you're responsible because even though it's your private wall, your wall should not protrude outward where people are walking. Same low, but if it's in the owner's property, then you're going to be potter. My time of potter. Some Rav it's not normal for a person to rub against walls, and therefore, if the wall and the thorns were in your property, then they had no business basically trespassing onto your property, and therefore that's why you'll be potter in that case. Tanur Hamasnia kaitzaitzav usechuyaitzav l'toich kaisa shechavero. Let's say it's not your wall, but you have, for whatever reason, some glass or some thorns, for whatever reason you want to keep, but you stick it into your friend's wall. Uvobal kaisel, and the owner of the wall comes, and again, it's the owner of the wall didn't do this, and these thorns, this glass doesn't belong to him. V'saser kaislo, they dismantle their wall. V'naflo shusarabim v'heziku chayiv hamatzniya. So what happened? The person was injured not by the door, not by the wall, not by the piece of the wall, but by all the glass that shattered. So if that happened, so the matzniya, the one who put the glass into this wall, is chayiv, not the owner of the wall, even though the owner of the wall is the one who dismantled the wall. Interesting. Only if we're dealing with a weak wall. Why? Says Rashi, the havili hamatzniya lasuki ladaite shekaises oimid l'soisoi. That he probably should have said, there's a pretty good chance because this is a pretty bad wall and this is a relatively responsible owner of this wall, he's probably going to dismantle it soon. So he should have anticipated there was a good chance that this all could have happened. In this situation, if the wall was perfectly fine, in which no one would have anticipated that anything would have happened, you just stuck it into the wall, and therefore there was no reason to think anything was going to happen. It was just going to stay in that wall, and there's no way he's going to take it down. But for some reason, he did, or the wall fell, so then you're not going to be liable in that case. Question 10. Hamatzniya koitzaitza v'zuchayaisa v'kaisel chavero v'saser chaveris v'kaisel. He knocks down the wall. V'nafesh zram leziku mi chayiv. Great question. So v'kaisel ru'ah chayiv hamatzniya. V'kaisel bari chayiv al hakaisel. Okay. Weiter. Amar Ravina Zois Amaris. So based on what we have just established, so we can infer and understand that hamachasem bari Bidilio shechavero. Let's say you cover up your own pit, but you don't use your cover. You use your friend's cover, and maybe you weren't even asking permission, but you just covered up the pit. Great, now it's safe, but the thing you covered up with wasn't yours to use. Uvabal deli v'noto dilyoi chayabal habor. Let's say the owner of this cover comes, there's my cover, and he takes it off just because it's his, and it turns out that he actually opens up the pit. Nonetheless, the Baal HaBor is going to be the one who's chayiv. Says Rashi, Kidamrinan b'matzniya ketzaitzav, dahainu bor, the one who sticks these thorns into the wall, that's comparable to something which could potentially do damage, like a pit. B'kaisel ra'ua, a weak wall, shelchaver v'sasu zes kaisloi, and the owner takes down his wall. The chayv hamatzniya, the person who stuck in those thorns, which is like the creation of this dangerous pit, is chayv. Hachinami iboyo hasuki daitu shezeh yitel asdilyoy. You should know he's probably going to take his cover back. So it's the same thing. Your thorns are like a bore. You stuck it into your friend's wall, which is like barring your friend's cover. It's covering or protecting people from getting injured. So once the owner removes the wall, like taking back the cover from the pit, So the Matzniya is going to be chayev. So to over here, the Baal Habor is going to be chayev. So that's a comparison. Versus Pshita. Sounds like the exact same thing. So what exactly is being added over here by Ravina and the Zayso Maris? We can just infer it. No, maybe you would think over there, maybe he didn't know he wasn't able to let him know. Or in this other case, he should have let him know. Kamash Malon. In other words, when it comes, Rashi says Baal Dali, the Yadala Bahabor, since he knew he was opening up a pit, he now sees there's a massive hole in the Rosh Hashanah. He should have said, by the way, I'm taking back my cover. Now there's a huge danger that's open in the Rosh Hashanah. You should probably deal with it. And the fact that he didn't, maybe he's going to be chayiv. No. Tanraban, Kamashman. So Tanraban, Chasidim Harishainim, very famous Gemara over here. Hayumatzniim Kitsoisehem Zuchioisehem Batoich Sidoisehem. Mikim Lahem Gimel Tvachim Kadesh Yaakov Hamacharesha. That the Chasidim Harishainim, they were careful that they would cover up anything which was dangerous, their thorns, glass, whatever it was, they put into their fields, and they would dig 3 tvachim deep, so that even the plow would not be able to even touch it. That's how careful they were to make sure that someone would not get injured. Sheshis Shadil Hubanura, he would actually throw it into the river. That's pollution or whatever, but in those days that was a good thing. Rabbi Shadil Hu Bediglas, he threw it into the Diglas, the Chidekel, into the river there. Rabbi Yehuda, this is the famous Gemara. Haman de boy have a chasida. You want to be a chassid? What are you supposed to do? Ground pass? Okay, that's important. That's a good thing. Have a furry hat? Okay, it's a very nice tradition. But that's not what makes you into a chassid. So kai milid in the zikin. Follow the laws of damages. Rava Omer milid the avos. Follow the ways of avos, which has to do with, according to Perky Avos, that's how most people interpret that. Fine. V'yamrila mili de brachos. Some say the matters of learning brachos, to say a bracha with proper kavana. So nezikin is bein adam l'chavero, and avos is bein adam l'atzmo, improving yourself. And brachos is bein adam l'makoim. So some say that's the 3-ply manner of strengthening one's mitzvah observance, is being well-rounded in all areas. Okay. Question TA 18. Hamatzniya ketzaitza b'tzait kaisa chavero uvabal kaisa v'sasas kaisa v'nafel v'shosram v'ziku michayev. Exactly the same question on Daf Lamed. Again, it's totally if the wall was weak or the wall was not weak. That is TA 18. Okay. Let's see if TB has, probably usually have similar questions. Hamatzniya ketzaitza v'zuchuchus toy kaisa chavero v'sasas bal kaisa v'skaisa v'ziku v'shosram v'chayev. Mamish identical question, TB 19. But I'd like to see what I wrote for this one, just for the fun of it. Yesh Havdel Bein Kotel Chazak Shein Machshava Shabal Bayis Hu Neufel Uboynes a Kaisel Hazeh Bal Bayis Chayev Shehu Tzarech Livdoik as a Kaisel Avol Bekaisel Ra Garua Az Chayev Hamatzniya. Okay. Not the best ivrit, but that's the correct answer. All right, let's continue with the next Mishnah. Let's see the next Masnis. Okay. Hamoitzias tivnoi v'kashel rishus harabim. Person who takes his straw, he takes his grains, and he puts it into the middle of the street. Lizvolim. What does that mean? Says Rashi, sheyarkavu hateven, so that it should decompose. Vakash, v'nasim zevel, becomes almost like fertilizer. Zevel sadus akramim. So therefore it becomes beneficial, then you can sprinkle it all over your fields, and that helps the growth in your field. The problem is that you stuck in the Rosh Hashanah, and you're hoping that people would step all over it. But so someone is actually going to be chayiv in that situation. You're going to be chayiv in that situation. Now, it's interesting. It says anyone who's kaidim to take this straw zaycha, because it seems like it's really like hefker, and therefore you could take it. Rav Shimon Gamliel Omer kol mekol kol b'rshus harabim of heziku chayav l'shalim, says Rashi, and they'll finish this up. V'chol kaidim hen zacha. So says Rashi, Rav Shimon Gamliel Shamil Tanakama. So he's like responding to this. Deloi kanas ella shvacha. It's actually you're increasing the value of a gufa lo, but the principle not. In other words, he says you do not kanas except for the increased value, but the principle not. V'yosrav Shimon Gamliel l'meimar de guf nami kol hamak kol kaidim bo'izacha. So what we're possibly saying in the machlokes in our Mishnah, because it seems similar, is when it says kol kaidim him zacha, are you kind of the increase, but maybe you have to pay back the original straw it's worth, or you get to keep the whole thing? Lishna Charina, says Rashi, kol mekal kol v'fil oisim rishus. He's just coming to tell you that even in a situation where it was done with permission, you're still chayav like you saw before. And then the Mishnah concludes, a hoifech es hagalal b'rishus rabim, someone who's turning around, and we saw this like waste, and that hoifech, as we said, could be pachas megimel, close to the ground, b'rishus rabim, v'huzah b'hen achar chay b'niskai. So again, in that situation, you're going to be chayav for damages, as we've established previously. Says the Gemara, Tolei masnis no lo Rabbi Yehuda. Apparently, our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Yehuda. Why? The time when people would take out fertilizer, they would take this into the Rosh Hashanah, and it would pile up for 30 days, which means you're actually allowed to leave it there. Rashi says, because this is beneficial, so that people are going to be able to step all over it. And in other words, we're not makbid on this. It's self-understood that this is something which is beneficial for Eretz Yisrael in general, in order for there to be proper growth in the fields. So the question is, our Mishnah says that you're chayiv, but you're given permission according to Rabbi Yehuda. For instance, it's true, but if you'll take Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda shem hizik l'shalim, masha hizik. Even though it's true that you are allowed to do it, as we said, it doesn't mean that if someone gets injured, you're going to be potter, you're still going to be chayiv. But just gives you permission to do it, but recognizing that there are consequences if someone does get hurt. But Tanan, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, B'ner Chanukah potter. So we're actually now in 2023, we're about to celebrate Hanukkah in a few days, so here's the dinim of Hanukkah. B'ner Chanukah potter. Namely, if you take your candle, your Chanukiah, and you put it in a place outside, and you have a camel that is ta'un pishton, Rashi says, carrying flax, which is really Gemara ben Malek and Shabbos, but similar here, and it ignites and causes damage, you're potter. Because you put that Chanukiah out with permission. So my law, Mishum Rishus Beistin. Beistin gave you Rishus. It says Beistin gave you Rishus, says Rashi, Haniach Bachutz, to leave the Chanukiah outside, Mishum Persumi Nisa, so you're potter. So therefore, we see that Rabbi Yehuda actually holds that you're potter from damages. Whoa. Mishum Rishus Mitzvah. Over here, it wouldn't be enough just Rishus Beistin. Because Rishus Mitzvah, says Rashi, Mishum Rishus Beistin, the Mitzvah Mifter. because it wasn't just Rishus Beistin, but it was also to do a mitzvah. So if that's the reason why you're potter. If Rishus Beistin, the la mitzvah chayiv, says Rashi. Decided Yehuda Omer, Bener Chanukah potter, Mimnei Shehu Rishus mitzvah. That's not just Rishus Beistin, but with a mitzvah. And that's the reason why we make an exception that you're potter over there, because in order to do a mitzvah and not to deter a person from doing a mitzvah, we don't want a person to say, well, yeah, I better not do it outside, because if I do it outside, I presume he said, yeah, but if I do it outside, there's a chance someone may end up causing damages. I'm going to be chayav for it. So the Chacham said, no, you're going to be potter, don't worry. Tashma. Kol Eilish Amru. All these things that we mentioned, Mutar l'kalka b'Rishus Harabim, you're allowed to put them in the Rishus Harabim. However, im hiziko chayin l'shalom, you're going to be chayav to pay. But here it says, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, potter. It says poiter. It says beferish, Rabbi Yehuda holds your potter. So it's clear, unlike our Mishnah. So clearly, Rabbi Yehuda does not hold like our Mishnah. So Rabbi Nachman masnisan deloi shaloi b'shas haitzas zvalim. Rabbi Yehuda. We're talking about a time when a person's not supposed to be putting the zvalim outside, and therefore it could be like Rabbi Yehuda. So our Mishnah is talking specifically in this case is where you're not allowed to do it. So that's why you're chayav. However, when you are allowed to do it, then that's why Rabbi Yehuda poiter. Shalom b'shas haitzas zvalim. So again, that's the nafkamina. So if again, there's a difference between getting permission to do it or not getting permission to do it. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda pointed out, Rav Ashi Omer, as we continue to Lamed Amud Beis, he says, Tivnoi v'kashoy tanan mishum dimi sharkei. The reason why you're chayiv, says Rashi, the mechayiv the adayin lo nasu zevel. Right now, it's not zevel yet. There's a difference between you putting out zevel and you putting out straw. Why? Says Rashi, zevel v'kashim hein umachlikin bohen. You can slip on that. So this is the reason why you're going to be chayiv. You're chayiv because it's not zevel. If it's zevel, Rabbi Yehuda holds your potter. However, when it's straw, in that case you're chayiv because you can slip on it. You're only potter when it comes to putting out zvalim. However, if you put out straw, which has not yet turned into the fertilizer, so then at that point, if someone slips, according to Yehuda, he will say you are chayiv. So the only reason why he says kol el sh'amru, the Rabbi Yehuda's poiter, is because it's zevel. Okay. All right. Says Rashi. It says Taisus. V'hadam achai masnisim beglolim, but the Gemara also mentioned that it says hahoifech hasegalal. So why would you be chayiv then? Fact Taisus. Avgad loy sharik. It's not slippery. Hainu mishum delespe shvacha v'letir l'haitzi bechinam. There's no growth in it. There's nothing. Therefore, there's no reason to put it out. The only reason why you're allowed to put it out is if it could potentially get better. But if it's something which is not going to get improved by being trampled on, so then you're not getting permission to do it. Kol koidim hen zacha. So, Omarav, what does it mean? You can take everything. Ben begufan, ben mishvachan. Which means, according to the Tanakama, you can take the actual value of the straw as well as its improvements. The fact that people stepped on the Rishus Harabim. Ziri omer b'shvachan avlo begufan. You can get the improvements, but you can't take the actual value of how much it was worth originally. So b'maikimif limar savar katsugufan mishum shvachan. We're going to knas the person who puts the straw out there that he's going to lose everything. Ziri savar lo katsugufan mishum shvachan. He should at least not lose out what he had originally. He just may not be able to get the value thereafter. That's all it's coming to tell you. Tanan, if you're moving around this fertilizer, you're chayiv in damages. In this situation, it does not mention anything about being Zoicha. Now, why not? Says, and this is actually Tosis helped us out over there already. So Rashi says, Mishum de Golal Zehu Rei. Ve'enu mashbiach v'shus rabim. It doesn't get any better. There is no improvements. The meshubach v'oimid. This is as good as it's going to get. The kashal rav, because this is the gufan, so it can't be taken as it wasn't improved, as it was put into the reshus rabim as galal. So therefore, Rav says you also get the gufan. We kanas, and you can get the gufan as well. But what do you mean? Over here, it doesn't say you can get anything. So why not? It must be because the only thing you could have gotten is like the sheet of Zeiri. You only get the shvachan. But over here, there's no shvach. There's no improvements. That's the reason why it doesn't say kol kadim zacha. That's why it doesn't say kol kadim zacha, because there's nothing you can be zeichet in this case. So again, it seems like a riot to Zeiri and Kash and Rav. So Tana l'reisha v'hudin l'seifa. So Rav can say, no, it doesn't have to keep repeating the same line. We can understand it already mentions this din, that anyone can get it, and therefore the seifa is just mentioning another case. We doesn't have to mention all the dinim. You can just say ibid. We understand it's the same thing as above. V'tani Allah surim mishim gezel. It's mentioned regarding there in a brisa that it's usher to take it because it's stealing. So what does that mean? It's stealing. You're saying that it's hefker. Ki katani asurim mishum gezel kul masdisin koi. It means that if someone did take it because it's hefker, and now this new person has it and is the owner, you can't grab it out of his hands and say, oh, this was once mine. No. If you take it, or anyone for that matter, from this person who's already coined it, then it is Gzela. Volkatani hachi. Okay, it's a nice answer, but it doesn't say that. Not a moitzi tivnoi v'kasha v'shus harabim. L'zvalim, person leaves the straw out in order for it to become fertilizer. V'huzek ben acher, and someone gets injured. So chai ben nisko, you're chai in the damages. The whole kainim behen zacha, and anyone who wishes to take it can take it. And over here it says umuter mishum gezel. Now, what do you mean umuter mishum gezel? Does that mean you could steal it from the person who's kind it? Obviously, that's not what it means when it says mutter mishum gezel. And here's the other important point: when it comes to the galal, v'huzik ben acher, and someone is damaged, so chayiv, it says v'as mishum gezel. So it's clear that in this case, when it says as mishum gezel, you can't take the dung. That's what it means. Because the ratio, it says umuter mishum gezel, is telling me to tell you that you're allowed to take it. Don't worry, kol hem zayche, you can take it, and you're not a gazlan, right? It's not considered. There's no din of gezel. You're mutter bohen, mutter mishum gezel. However, in this case, it's also mishum gezel. So it's not because that you're stealing it from someone else who was kind it. It's apparently saying that you can't take it yourself. Why? It's a kash and rab, because the goof, the actual straw itself, that should go back to the owner, or in this case, the galal, I should say. So again, we're back to Akash and Rav. So Rav Nachman, focusing on Rav Nachman, Bar Yitzchak Omer, so he says, Galal Karamas. Understand, you're asking a kasha with Galal. Davar sheish bo shevach kansu gufa mishim shvachai. Davar shein bo shevach lo kansu. Beautiful teretz. The whole notion of why Rav says you get the guf is because it's a kanas. What is it? He holds we kanas the guf because of the shvach. But if there's no shvach, then there's no kanas on the guf either. So that's the reason why. You're right. You're not, when it comes to the galal, when there's no shavach, there's no improvements, you can't take anything. However, in the case where there is shvach, you can also take the guf. That's the answer. Okay. When it says that you can there is this kanas, which is the sheet of Rav, you can take everything. So alter kansinan olchi maisi shvacha kansinan. Can you grab it right away while it's still straw, or do you have to wait until it actually makes improvements? Tashma. So we can say it says midikamrinan galal. It mentions galal in this case. In galal there are no improvements. In l'char you can still take it. But tizbra ki amrinan galal mikamei dilashani Rav Nachman. When did we mention this? This is before Rav Nachman gave the teretz. Babasa the Shani Rav Nachman mi'ikla mirma golal klal. Now that we know the teretz of Rav Nachman, that because golal has no improvements, you're not allowed to take the golal either. So therefore, that's certainly, you cannot bring this as a raya to anything. Okay. Lema kitanoi. So let's say this whole thing is based on a machlokas tanoi. Let's see. Shtar shekasabo ribis. So a person wrote a document and he lent money. So he really did lend $100, but he says, I want you to pay me back $300. So he's a real money grabber, okay? But he really is owed $100. So it says like this. Rameir says not only does he not have to pay back the full $300, he doesn't have to give back the $100 that he borrowed. No, he has to give back the 100. He just doesn't have to pay back the ribis. Sounds a lot like our case. Whether it kanas the shvachim, the guf because of the shvach. Lema Rav Yomi Karam Meir, Zir Yomi Karabano. Amrulach Rav Anod Yomi Fil Rabbanon. Rav who says we kanas, I can hold like the Rabbanon that we don't kanas when it comes to ribis. Because Ad kan lo kam Rabbanon hasam. Why when the Rabbanon say you don't kanas when it comes to the ribis? El Karen to behatera. Because the truth is, he was nice enough to lend $100, so he should definitely get his $100 back. Avahacha Karen Gufa Kamazik. Over here, the actual thing, the straw, is what caused the damage. So therefore, we will kanas even that. So the $100 didn't do anything wrong. It was the fact that you tacked something onto it. Fine. It was the Iriom Milachana Dermil Rameir. Because Ad Kan Lo Kam Rameir Hasam. Why does Rameir say we kanas, and you say you lose not only the ribis, obviously, we're not going to let you collect the ribis, but not even the money itself. El demishas ksiva de avad le shuma. Because at the time that you did the writing, you're involved in the placing of ribis. Says Rashi, Sham olav neshech v'avar b'loy to simun. You already, at the time of the writing of the loan, fine, you gave $100 beheter, but the whole loan, everything, it was connected to the whole isser of ribis. Therefore, we say the whole thing is thrown out. In this situation, it's not guaranteed this person is going to necessarily be injured, so therefore we shouldn't necessarily assume that that would happen. Therefore, this person wouldn't be penalized. Lema kehani tanoi. Okay, so how about this machlokas tanoi? Hamaitzi tiv noi v'kasher rishus harabim. And this sounds a lot like our case. The person puts tevin kash into the rishus harabim l'zvolin, and he wants it to become fertilizer. V'huzik behanacher, someone gets damaged. Chay b'niskay. So the din is that you're chay for the damages. V'chol kodim hem zocha, and anyone who takes it can take it. And it says over here, Vasurin Mishum Gezel. That's going to be our key focus here. Vasurin Mishum Gezel. Now, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer, Kol HaMekol Kol Rishus Harabim, anyone who puts something which potentially could cause damage in the Rishus Harabim, Vazikun, and someone gets injured, Hiziku, Chayav Shalom, you have to pay. V'chol Kadam Hem Zacha, Umatur Mishum Gezel. So it's interesting. You have these two different opinions. One says Asim Mishum Gezel, and they both say kol kodim him. They both say you're chayiv in damages. They both say that kol kodim him zacha, but for some reason one says it's osir from gezel, one says it's mutter from gezel. So hagufa kasha. Amr kol kodim him zacha v'hader kamer asum mishum gezel. The statement itself is hard to understand. How is it possible you can say that you can be kind, you can take it, but it's gezel? If it's gezel, if you're chayiv gezela, then you're not allowed to take it. So how does it understand and reconcile the steer in the brace itself? Elvav, rather it must be the hachikamer. This is pshat. L'chol kaidim hem zacha b'shivchan. Anyone who wishes, they can get the shvach, the improvements. However, assuming shem gezel a gufan. You're not allowed to take the guf. You can't take also what its original worth was. Maybe that's what it's talking about. Maybe they're arguing similar to our case of Rav and Zeiri, whether that you can also, you're kind of the shava, the guf. So Zeiri vadi tanahi. So according to Zeiri, he's kind of forced to have to say that it would be a machlokas tanoi between when Zeiri says shvachan avul gufan. So you would have to say that this case is a machlokas tanoim, which we wouldn't want to do, but there's no way he could bullshit. This could sound like Zeiri. So for him, you're right. Lo Rami lema tanoi. Maybe according to Rav, it's a machlokas tanoi as well. Now Omer Rav no. The kuliyama kansu gufan mishum shvachan. This is what he holds, that you can ask the whole thing. So v'halacha vein morin kain kamifagi. The whole question is, even though it's the halacha, does it mean that we're going to be able to paskin outwardly like this? Says Rashi. Tanakama savar halacha de kansu gufan ve'ein morin kain. We don't announce it. V'hakikar halacha kol kan mehem zacha v'yafil gufan di eved. You can even take even the thing itself. Ve'i asilu mereishal kaman la'amluchi amrinan le asur mishum gezel. So even though quietly, halachically, the din is, yeah, I guess you can keep it, but the truth is, if they would ask us, we'd say asur mishum gezel, which is kind of a shtickle madna that we would tell them it's asur, but if they do it, it's asur mishum gezel, but it's not like you have recourse to be able to have to give it back. There's no, that wouldn't be the case. Perhaps that's the whole machlokas. Do we say halacha vein morin kain? Ditmar. Rav Huna oimer Rav, halacha vein morin kain. Rav Ada bar Rava oimer halacha morin kain. You talk with paskin like this. Aini, but Rav Huna afger chulshay. Rav Huna would be mafger chulshay, which are, Rashi says, soirim kilufin, peeled barley, that were in a rishus rabim, and he would take it, which is mashma even the guf. He would take the whole thing. So Rav Huna certainly is not going to go against his own sheet of halacha vein marin kain if he l'chatchil would grab it, right? He doesn't have to ask any shilas. He knows that he knows the reality. He knows the reality is l'chatchil maybe he shouldn't do a halacha vein marin kain. So why would he do it? He wouldn't do something. He practices what he preaches. So obviously that can't be the b'shah. Rav Ada bar Rava, after, as we continue to Lamed Aleph and Aleph, Selik Usa. Rashi says, Psoilis Itsuri Tamarim, the leftovers of dates, Sha'asu Mehem Shechar, which people would make beer out of. So, obviously, again, they would not be in their opinion of halacha vein morin kain. So, Bishul Rav Ada bar Rava Kishmaise. I can understand, according to him, Rav Ada bar Rava, maybe, again, he is of that opinion, right? What does he say? He says, halacha morin kain. He actually holds that you're allowed to do it. That's what he said, halacha morin kain, so that's why you're allowed. El Rav Huna lema haderbe, maybe he retracted. No, hanu mutarin havu. These were takel mutter, says Rashi. Shehitru kama pamim babalim. It's been completely allowed by the owners. So this is an exception because there's no question that no one wants this stuff. So therefore they collected, it's okay. But maybe normally we talk say halacha vein morin kain. Adkan.